Hello again. Welcome back to week 6 of year 5 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 2. So, last time we began this very popular work from the early Christian world in which we find a dramatization, not a historical recounting, but a dramatization. This is historical fiction, if you will, of the courtship and marriage of Joseph and Aseneth. This story gives us a nice sense of the context and backstory uh, that the Jewish world at the time of Christ and the Christian world in the first centuries understood and assumed when they read the later chapters of Genesis. We should remember, of course, that there was a substantial and active Jewish community in Egypt at the time that this story was composed, in, let's say, the first century BC, and therefore the context is should be recognized as anachronistic. This is not trying to be historically accurate to whatever time, whatever date is actually the time of Joseph, whether that's 1400 BC or 1600, whatever. Um, this is anachronistic. It reflects more the reality in Egypt at the time Christ was there, because of course Christ sojourned in Egypt for a couple years at the turn of the calendar. But that too, uh, uh, a glimpse into what Egypt was perceived to be like at in 1 BC or whatever, is valuable and fascinating to us, and it gives a beautiful window into how the faithful at the time of the Lord read the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. So, this is our second reading. And it happened in the first year of the 7 years of plenty, in the 4th month, on the 18th day of the month, that Joseph came into the territory of Heliopolis and was gathering the surplus grain of that region. And when he had come close to that city, Joseph sent 12 men ahead of him to Pentephres the priest, saying, I will lodge with you, because it is the hour of noon and the time of lunch, and the heat of the sun is great, and I desire that I may refresh myself under the shadow of your house. And Pentephres heard this, and rejoiced exceedingly with great joy, and said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Joseph, because my lord Joseph thought me worthy to come to us. And Pentephres called the steward of his house, and said to him, Hurry and make my house ready, and prepare a great dinner, because Joseph, the powerful one of God, is coming to us today. And Aseneth heard that her father and mother had come from the field which was their inheritance, and rejoiced, and said, I will go and see my father and my mother, because they have come from the field which is our inheritance, for it was the time of harvest. And Aseneth hurried into the chamber where her robes lay, and dressed in a white linen robe interwoven with violet and gold, and girded herself with a golden girdle, and put bracelets on her hands and feet, and put golden buskins about her feet, and around her neck she put valuable ornaments and costly stones, which hung around from all sides, and the names of the gods of the Egyptians were engraved everywhere on the bracelets and the stones, and the faces of all the idols were carved on them. And she put a tiara on her head, and fastened a diadem around her temples, and she covered her head with a veil. And she hurried and went down the stairs from the upper floor, and came to her father and mother, and greeted them, and kissed them. And Pentephres and his wife rejoiced over their daughter Aseneth with great joy, because they saw her adorned like a bride of God. And they brought out all the good things which they had brought from the field which was their inheritance, and gave them to their daughter. And Aseneth rejoiced over all the good things, over the fruit, and the grapes, and the dates, and the doves, and the pomegranates, and the figs, because they were all handsome and good to taste. And Pentephres said to his daughter Aseneth, My child. And she said, Behold, here I am, my lord. And he said to her, Sit down between us, and I will tell you what I have to say. And Aseneth sat between her father and mother. And Pentephres her father with his right hand grasped the right hand of his daughter, and kissed it, and said to her, My child Aseneth. And she said, Behold, here I am, Lord. Let my lord and my father speak up. And Pentephres her father said to her, Joseph, the powerful one of God, is coming to us today, and he is chief of the whole land of Egypt, and the king Pharaoh appointed him king of the whole land, and he is giving grain to the whole land, and saving it from the oncoming famine. And Joseph is a man who worships God, and is self-controlled, and a virgin like you today. And Joseph is also a man powerful in wisdom and experience, and the Spirit of God is upon him, and the grace of the Lord is with him. Come, my child, and I will hand you over to him for his wife, and you will be a bride to him, and he will be your bridegroom forever and ever. And when Aseneth heard these words from her father, plenty of red sweat poured over her face, and she became furious with great anger, and looked askance at her father with her eyes, and said, Why does my lord and my father speak words such as these, to hand me over like a captive to a man who is an alien and a fugitive, and was sold as a slave? Is he not the shepherd's son from the land of Canaan? And he himself was caught in the act when he was sleeping with his mistress, and his master threw him into the prison of darkness, and Pharaoh brought him out of prison because he interpreted his dream just like the old women of the Egyptians interpret dreams. No, but I will be married to the king's firstborn son, because he is king of the whole land of Egypt. Hearing this, Penthefres was ashamed to speak further to his daughter Aseneth about Joseph, because she had answered him daringly, and with boastfulness, and with anger. All right. So, on the one hand, we have this characterization of Penthefres, or Potipharah, as we see in the scripture, same name, just phrased in Greek. And he has met Joseph. He's aware of him. He knows what has happened. He is conscious that Joseph is good and righteous and filled with the peace and the power of God. He's impressed by the young man, and he recognizes that it would be a blessing if he could marry his daughter off to such a man as this. She would be in good hands, and indeed she would be marrying up. She's not going to become the queen of Egypt like she thinks, and if she did, then she would just be one of a whole harem or whatever. But Joseph, he's virtuous. He's not going to be taking many wives. His daughter will be well cared for, and she will be the wife of the most powerful man in Egypt except for the Pharaoh. It's good parenting, and it's good politics. That's a reference to a movie, even if you catch it. Anyway, Aseneth, however, Aseneth has not seen Joseph, has not heard all the good things that have been heard. She's heard jealous words spoken at second or third hand through her maidens, and she's heard all of the scandal, all the gossip, all the slander that has been said about Joseph. So he's a son of a shepherd. He's a fugitive. He's running away from something. He's a slave, and more than that, he assaulted his mistress, and he was caught red-handed, and they threw him into prison, and the Pharaoh's only favoring him because he could interpret some dreams, which any old woman could have done for him. What is all of this, right? He doesn't have any business even kissing my feet, she might as well say. But Penthefres, he knows what Joseph is like. He's ashamed of the ignorance and the pride of his daughter. And he's sad because this would be good. He knows that his daughter isn't only like this. He knows that she would be good for Joseph, and Joseph would be good for her. So he's ashamed. So that's kind of on the root level. But there are elements of this that I think might indicate why the church loved this. Because we're talking about Joseph several times as being the powerful one of God. So Joseph is like the chosen one, the anointed one, the Messiah. He's a type, an image of the glorious ruler in whom is seen the presence of God. He's a type of Christ, even if not understood at the time by the Jewish people who wrote this as a type of Jesus Christ. But he's a type of Messiah, and Aseneth being dressed as a bride with all the splendor and glory of polytheism of Egypt coming down. She is ready for a bridegroom, but she is not ready. She has not yet laid these things aside. And her father and mother have all their inheritance of all the riches and good things of the earth that they have prepared, and they are offering to her and preparing for Joseph, and they want to offer her. So there's almost this image of all the nations, all of the pagans, being prepared to offer their children to become not Egyptians any longer, but the people of God. And Aseneth is an image of all of this. Not yet willing, not yet ready, but prepared nonetheless. And I think, again, this would be part of why the church would love this, because they would see in her a type of their own story having come, because the early church, they were all converts. They were all former polytheists, if they came from among the Gentiles, who had entered into the covenant, who had been grafted in, like St. Paul speaks of. And Aseneth is she is maybe she's the first. So anyway, we're going to see what happens next and what comes of Aseneth's pride. But for now, God bless you all. We'll see you shortly for day 3.